if you like to also want to ping me there on Twitch or on YouTube, feel free to do that too. Okay, let's move on. So let's start off with the model context protocol. Okay, if you click on that link, it will show you this little page. It's all in dark mode. I don't know if that's easy for your eyes, but for everyone's sake, let's do it in a little light mode. So what is model context protocol? It's basically like a little tool that you give to your LLM, to your AI, that if you want to give it a little bit more ability to actually do things that an API is restricted of you to do, you can do that with model context protocol. So it says here already. MCP helps you build agents and complex workflows on top of LLMs. LLMs frequently need to integrate with data and tools, and MCP provides a growing list of pre-built integrations that your LLM can directly plug into. The flexibility to switch between LLM providers and vendors. The best practices for securing your data within your infrastructure, right? So the general architecture of creating your MCPs to your LLMs is something like this, right? So you have an MCP protocol, and that's being hosted by your MCP server. This MCP server is supposedly connected to a local data source, and that local data source is then being fetched back to the MCP server, and MCP server will then send it to the MCP client. The MCP client can be your Claude, your Copilot, your ChatGPT, whoever that may be, and then the user will be on the other side of that, will be asking you questions. Hey, what do I have in my Google task list, or what do I have inside my Notions notes? So all of these are equipping the AI, the LLM, to use MCPs that has all of these abilities, these capabilities, to search up for data sources elsewhere without you actually writing too much code. All right. So that's what MCP is. I'll show you a little bit of example of how actually that we use. In fact, both of these examples over on the model context protocol and the next thing, ADK, Agent Development Kit, is also available. And they both showed both examples of using weather agents. So what we're going to do today is basically build weather agents. Ooh, okay, nice. So if we move on to Agent Development Kit, okay, that will be the next thing. Oh, not this one. That was me working on something on the side. So if I go back to the resource materials, we have the Agent Development Kit link. Okay, so there's the Agent Development Kit link. So if you click on that one, it will give you this proper official documentation for Agent Development Kit. So what is Agent Development Kit? It's a development kit developed by Google, where they allow AI developers like myself and maybe perhaps for the rest of you, is so that you can easily and quickly build your AI agents by using their development kit. It's basically like a framework in a way. So instead of you trying to build a lot of things from scratch, like what Ananda was showing, like you can actually build your own model. It's not limiting you to not actually build your own model, but if you want, you can actually do a little bit more easier. So this is more like putting it into a little bit of an easy mode to actually build your AI agents. So to get started is to actually do pip install Google ADK and then go through the quick start tutorials. So it's there's a lot of good nitty features and sweetness out of this development kit. We have the flexible orchestration, we have the multi-agent architecture, the rich tool ecosystem, and it's deployment ready. So if you want to actually just deploy something as quick as possible with AI agents, you can do that with this. It has a built-in evaluation, so you can actually test and check, is it really understanding the context? If I ask it how many R's there are in strawberry, will it give me the right answer? So a little quick thing in chat. How many R's are there in strawberry? Yeah, 3. That's right, it's 3. So exactly. So good. You are Alan Turing complete then. So with building, this becomes a thing where we need to evaluate whether this AI isn't just hallucinating answers out of thin air. We need to actually evaluate, like, is this the right model? Is it doing what it's supposed to do? Is it pulling out data properly? This ADK stuff is like all built in for you. cases of ADK and Model Context Protocol. You can go one way or the other. You can actually build the MCP first, or you can build the ADK first. Let's start with the ADK, just so you can see how you can actually plug this MCP into your ADK. So let's start off with the quick start guide. Okay, so if you click on the quick start guide, you'll be able to see that you can actually build this in between Python or Java. Today we'll be using Python. Okay, I'll be using it in Python. If we build it in Java, it'll take some time for it to compile and all that stuff. Whereas in Python, it just goes straight into the interpreter and then gives you the result quicker. So in the sake of sickness of time, we'll do it by Python. So we'll be following this guide, python-m, venv, and google ADK. So the way I do it is basically to actually create a new folder first. So you can put this anywhere in your computer. I normally put them inside my streams folder. So if I pwd, so I put it inside my user sites, my streams. You can put it wherever you want, in documents, in downloads, in your desktop. Just create a new folder so that anything pertaining to this particular project, it's in that particular folder. So if you open up your terminal, and then if you go to and then if you create your folder there, mkdir, and I'm going to create this one as, I'll create this as a weather agent tutorial, right? Okay, that's what we're going to do today. And then we're going to cd into that weather agent tutorial, and I'm inside the folder, right? So I was here at sites my streams, and now I'm at sites my streams weather agent tutorial. Next, we will need to start creating our venv inside this project folder. So we just follow that, almost following that, because in terms of Linux and Windows, they work differently. So I assume you have Python installed. If you don't have Python installed, you need to go to python.org and install it. So if you do already have Python installed, normally for Windows we would use py, okay, py, and not Python, because Python has suddenly changed a few things, and going on to 3.14, it's a little bit a longer nuance. So if we do py-m venv, and sure, let's do that, .venv, this will create a virtual environment. So when this creates a virtual environment, anything that we install inside this project folder will remain in this folder. It will be containerized inside this folder. Now that we have that, now we have to activate that virtual environment. So Windows CMD shows this, Windows PowerShell shows this. I'm in my PowerShell, so I'm going to follow that. venv scripts activate.ps1. So that creates your virtual environment, and it's in the and you can probably see that if it depends on your PowerShell or your terminal screen where it will actually indicate whether you're in the environment variable or not. So that's where I am. So since I'm already activated inside my virtual environment, let me just zoom in a little bit. I can do pip install google-adk. Okay. So this will take a little bit of a while. It won't take up a lot of your data, even though ujung-ujung bulan sudah, we might finish quota or something. So just be careful. You might actually lose a lot of time on this thing. Right. Before we proceed, speaking of data-wise, do we have anyone who needs a Google Gemini API key? And do we have enough to actually go around? Otherwise, I would have to ask all of you to actually start downloading Ollama. Okay, so assuming there's Google Gemini API keys already provided around to everyone, and plus with the previous workshop you've been exposed to using Google Cloud, I assume you would have some access to using Google Gemini API keys. But just in case, I will show you also the way with Ollama. So I'll be showing you both. Okay, so don't worry about it. If you can't afford to put in your credit card information onto Google and then get the Google Gemini API key, I can show you the Ollama way, where you can self-host your own LLM on your machine, and it doesn't cost you anything but power, electricity bill, and hopefully a stronger computer. Okay. Okay, so I've already pip installed Google ADK. You can see that it's already completed. You can ignore this. A new release of pip is available, blah, blah, blah. We'll move on to just start creating our agent project. So the way we actually do this is actually create a folder structure like this. So we need the parent folder to look like that, multi-tool agent like that, along with these three files. --init __init __.py, agent.py, and .env. So your parent folder would be like this one, the weather agent tutorial would be the parent folder. Then if you want to create your agent, and if you have multiple agents, you have to create them in separate folders. So every subfolder of your project folder is an agent, okay? So if I create one agent here, call it mkdir weather _agent, then that would be the weather agent. Okay, so if I want to create another one, say news agent, then there will be another folder. So it would be side by side. So they're not a parent of each other. They have to be side by side. So now that we have this, the weather agent. Oh, sorry. I wasn't meant to do that. The mkdir, because here there's a little note here that says for Windows users, when using ADK on Windows for the next few steps, we recommend creating Python files using File Explorer or an IDE because the following commands mkdir echo typically generate files with null bytes and or incorrect encoding. So I don't know why that happens. I've done it myself. I've done the mkdir and echo and all that stuff on Windows. It turns out fine, but I'm sure that they've done some exhaustive tests and they may have found some problems when you're actually writing mkdir or echo on Windows. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that rm weather agent, and we're going to do this inside the Visual Studio Code. Okay. So if you have Visual Studio Code or whatever editor of choice you have, whether that be Cursor, Windsurf, PyCharm, whatever you like, even Notepad. I'm not judging. Okay, if you want to do that, it's up to you, man. So if you want to actually use any of these editors, please use them for your benefit. I'm familiar with Visual Studio Code, and due to popular opinion, Visual Studio Code is much more popular, so I'll be using Visual Studio Code. So I'll do code and then dot just to say it's the local directory. So if I hit enter on that one, I will then open up Visual Studio Code directly onto directly up onto my screen, and we can continue from there. So I'll put this onto the side, and I'll put this to the side, so you can see me follow along and all that stuff. I would think Notepad++ would be the better goat. Okay, so right, so we're here in the weather agent tutorial, the project folder. As you can see, there is no folders other than the .venv. That is for us to actually create our environment variable, virtual environment. Just in case the Visual Studio Code is not inside the virtual environment, we have to activate it again. So .venv scripts activate PS1. So now I'm in. Okay. So I don't need to pip install Google ADK again because that's already pertained inside the virtual environment already. Now let's create that folder. So weather _agent. Okay. Maybe I'll zoom in for the goodness of the stream. Okay. Next. So inside the weather agent, it's an empty folder, right? So if we create a new file, according to this, we have to create a dunder init file. So if we click on the create new file, we would have dunder init dot. Can I type today? Yes, I can. Okay. So inside the dunder init.py, we can go ahead and type in from.import agent. Okay, it's just that single line. Save. Okay. So Control S, just to make sure, spam the Control S. Sometimes people forget to save their file, or you just go to File and then enable autosave. Just it's up to you. Okay, so now you have the dunder init.py from.import agent. Pretty simple. All right, done with one file. Next, we move on to the agent.py. We create a new file, in the same folder of weather agent, agent.py, and then we start writing our little agent here. So for those who may not know how to actually write Python programming, it's all here. You can just copy and paste. It's up to you. For me, I'm going to show you step by step and explain not excruciating every line, but enough just so that you understand what's going on of how this actually works. So starting off with the import datetime. So if I go and paste this here, import datetime, that basically just pulls in the datetime module, so you can play around with the date. From zone info, import zone info, that gives you the time zone basically. That's what the zone info is for. Next one is the from google.adk.agents import agent. So this is the Google ADK in itself, and that allows you, the developer, the AI developer, to actually create your agent. Okay, if you want to create multiple agents, you can do that with the agent side of this API. Next, def get weather, weather city, and you put that as a string, and it returns a dictionary. So we expect a dictionary. A dictionary would be like a key value pair, and it's separated by little squirty, curvy braces. So you can type this out if you want. Get a little bit of muscle memory in your fingers, or you can just copy and paste. It's totally up to you. The next one is basically the doc string. What this does is basically a way to tell. Your LLM what does this function do. Okay, this doc string is important because LLM needs some sort of context, like when should I use this function? When should I use this get weather function? So that def is basically defining this function called get weather, and then if the LLM sees this as one of its tools, it doesn't know what it does. It has to read this entire doc string. So that means you have to write it up in a way that's clear and proper for the LLM to understand. Okay, when should I use get weather? It says retrieves the current weather report for a specified city, where it accepts this one particular parameter, city, and it will take that as an argument, city string, the name of the city for which to retrieve the weather, and returns this dictionary. So previously, for programmers, we would rather not actually bother creating all these doc strings or comments inside the code. But to LLMs, it's now very, very important. If you want to create tools for LLMs, you have to start writing this little bit of message to tell it when to start using this. Okay. Moving on, we have if city lower, else and return. So I'm just going to copy all that and paste. So if cd.lower, I'm just going to close that terminal and maybe zoom out a little bit. Okay, so we have if cd.lower is New York, return status success, report, blah, 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 and else returns status error. So what this basically means is if you tell the LLM to give it the name of the city, New York, it will then pass it down to this function, and this function will then return back to the LLM. The LLM will then use that response that this function tool gave it and tells it back to the user, right? So for a little bit of fun, let's just change the New York to BSB, Bunai Bandar Seri Begawan. So I'm going to replace New York with BSB. Okay, make sure it's all in small letters because we have this thing here, city.lower. That's a little a Python little function to actually manipulate the string to make it all in lowercase, so it's easier to actually catch this little text. And then just in case the result, make sure to change the report here, the little text here that says also New York, change that to BSB. Or if you want, you can do Bandar Seri Begawan. Make that full if you want. Okay, so I'm gonna save that. Okay. Next, we're gonna continue along and actually get the current time. So we're gonna create actually two functions in this one. First one is to get weather, and the second one is to get current time. So to get current time, basically the same thing. We could also copy this the whole thing, or I'll just go one by one to explain the whole a little bit. So just as I explained earlier, it starts off with the name of the function. Okay, you define that function def and then get current time. It has to be a little bit verbose, like what's the point of this function? What does it do? You can't just say call it X. You gotta say get current time at least. So at least it tells the LLM this is how you get the current time. Use this function get current time. And then same thing, it needs a little bit of doc string that tells what it does. So it returns the current time in a specified city. Likewise again, if we grab the function, the rest of the code in the get current time, right. So this one is a little bit of hiccup. So just make sure that when you copy and paste, you copy and paste it correctly. So what I did is a little hiccup on this bit. On the very first line here, it indented too far to the right. Okay, indented too far to the right. You have to push it back to a little bit to the left. So it looks like this. So if the if and the else should be like in the same column. Okay. So so just because you're not typing code or you're just copying and pasting code, make sure you paste it correctly. Okay. For Python, white spaces is very sensitive. So you got to make sure that it's spaced properly. So same thing here. We'll just replace the New York with BSB. BSB. The TZ identifier though. Does anyone know what our time zone identifier is when it comes to computers? Go ahead, type it in chat. That's right, Albert. Good job, good job. I don't know if we give away gifts, Ada, but give that guy a cookie or something. Okay, so Asia, Brunei. So that's the correct answer. It's Asia, Brunei. And then if let's say if it's any other city, it will just return. Sorry, I don't have time zone information for that particular city. So that's something that you can actually do to actually tell. Exactly. So, sorry, I don't have time zone information for that particular city, and zone info. Um, yeah. So basically, the TZ zone info time zone identifier can actually do this. So if let's say you want to also cover for every other time zones, you can also do that. That is, if you don't return the status error. At the moment, what this does is basically it grabs this TZ identifier of Asia Brunei and it passes it down to the zone info function. And in that zone info function, it will convert that into a date time now. So that comes up to the TZ of the time of the current time zone because everything can be in GMT plus 0 or GMT minus 13, something like that. So then it will turn into a report for the current time in that city is this time in this date time string format. And then when it will return that into a dictionary that shows the status of success, and the report is the value of this current time. Okay, so you will get to see how this actually works as we go along. Moving on. Now this one is the most important part. If you're not going to actually build all these function tools, the last bit, the root agent, is the most important part. So I'm going to copy this. I'm going to paste it there. Okay, so make sure that the root agent is all the way to the left, all the way to the left of your editor, of your Notepad or your Notepad++ or whatever editor you're going to use, and you put in the name, the model, the description, and instruction. So every single one of these is actually important. So the first one is the name. You have to give it a name, like what do you want to call this agent, or what does the LLM want to call itself, right? It's got to have a name. The next one is the model. So there's a lot of models out there. You can also use Anthropic, you can use Claude, and later on I'll show you how to use Ollama. At the moment, let's just dive into Gemini. Okay, so into Google Gemini, in here in terms of the example, it's using Gemini dash 2.0 dash Flash. You can if it allows I'm kind of hoping to actually start looking at the new 2.5, but I haven't been able to get that working. Moving on to the description. So what is this agent for? So this agent is used to answer questions about the time and weather in the city. Okay, and the instruction is something that you have to instruct the LLM as you would for any prompt engineering. You are a helpful agent who can answer user questions about the time and weather in a city. Okay, and the most important part is the tools. Okay, so everything that we actually defined above, the get weather and the get current time, it's all from the functions that we wrote above it. So the get current time is there, the get weather is there. So if we go all the way to the bottom, the tools are there. So get weather and get current time. If you get rid of any of these tools away from it, it will do something else. Okay, it will not do as you would expect it to use to actually use your function. If it's not being part of its toolbox, I guess, if it's not there, it would probably start hallucinating. Oh, BSB is somewhere in the South Pole, probably. Not saying anything. Moving on. So before we actually move on to creating the Google Gemini .env, how's everyone? Give me a thumbs up if you're able to follow along. Okay, good. All right, let's move on. Okay, so we'll create a .env file. Okay, so if you open up the open up your editor. Okay, so I set mine on the right just in case. Some of you may have your Visual Studio Code still on the default on the left. I like mine on the right. It's a matter of preference. So anyway, moving on. Let's create a new file .env. Okay, so inside here .env, we'll start creating our Gemini API key. Okay, moving down, we have to set up our model. So as explained, here's a little bit of diagram of how that looks like. The user query, what's the weather in New York City? The weather agent will receive that and start processing it. Will decide and call which tool is available for that particular query. So it will then go into this tool call for get weather, or this tool call for the get current time. And then when either of these functions returns that result, the agent will process that result and then tells the user in its humanly response way. Okay. So in the setting up your model, you're going to have to set up your Google AI Studio and then grab your API key. So it depends on whether you have your Google project already set up. So here, this is you can go to aistudio.google.com/API key. I'm going to just copy this and put it into chat just in case if anyone needs like a really quick way of getting there. I've already got mine already prepared and set up. If you click over there, you go into your aistudio.google.com. If you're not logged in, please log in. If you already have an API key from your previous workshops, you can grab one of those. Otherwise, you can create another separate API key just for this workshop itself. You can do that. So if you go into aistudio.com, aistudio.google.com/API key, you can then start creating your API keys. So if you click on here, the big blue pill button that says create API key, if you click on that, if you click on that, it will then start asking you to select which Google project you want to actually create your API key for. If you have not created one Google project, you have to create one from scratch. Okay, so I will create Quasar. So I use this one as my experimental project for anything related to Google with its GCP and its EC2 and all that stuff. So I'm going to create it in here. So I'm going to create the API key off screen. Okay, so just so nobody tries to copy mine. Okay, creating. So that basically means that you gotta click that API key button, and that generates the API key. Okay, and I'm gonna copy that. I'm gonna. Actually, I should show you what the .env looks like. So this .env, it should look like this, right? Where's my no, not that. Okay. Copy this again. Paste it in here. There. So your .env should look something like this, except that where you copied your API key from your Google AI Studio, you gotta get rid of this, paste your actual API key here. Okay. So mine sort of looks, I'm not gonna show you the exact what. It's gonna show something like some gibberish ALZA, A blah blah blah, and then at the end of it would look like YSM. So something like that. Okay. So I'm not gonna show you my entire API key. You do you. So that's the thing that you got to do with API keys. Treat them like your passwords. Okay. You don't want people to actually start spamming with your API key and then run up your Google Cloud bill and you have to start paying with your credit card. Ada kena jawab tu. CQ tu punya pasal. Okay, so I'm gonna put this off screen and copy, paste it there, and I'm gonna close my .env file so you won't be able to see it. Okay, so do that. Save. Okay, so the thing that above that where it says Google Gen AI underscore use Vertex AI, keep that as false. Okay, just keep it as false. We're not going to use Vertex AI today. You can if you want, but I have not explored it myself of what is the difference or why use Vertex AI. But the documentation will show you a little bit more. So I've already copied that. Okay, so my .env file is there. Don't ask me me to show you what it looks like now. It's now hidden. Okay, so moving along. Where are we? Yes. So paste your actual API key with your actual API key. So you just follow along with the documentation. It's already all there. Moving on. So if you want to run your agent, right? If you want to run your agent, you have to use by using the terminal, navigate to the parent directory of your agent project using cd blah blah blah. But if we're already inside the Visual Studio Code, if you open up your terminal, where is if you open up your terminal, it's a little slow. I'm not sure why. Can I use? Okay, I think it's a little bit hanging, so I'm just gonna kill this terminal. Open up another one. Okay, so I'm gonna do that again. By mvm. Oh no, sorry. I just need activate. So .vm scripts. There. Now, now back into this terminal of Visual Studio Code. If you're using PyCharm, I don't know how that works in PyCharm. I'm sure you're already in the virtual environment. If you're in Notepad++, I have not touched that in a decade or so. So yeah, use what you will to actually use your terminal to actually navigate to your project folder. Just remain that you are in the project folder. So in your project folder, you have your .venv and your weather agent. If you type in ls, and then make sure that you're in your project folder. So you have multiple ways of running your agents. Sorry, I'm trying to find you guys. Just in case if anyone needs to chat or has anything has any problems, you can ping me in chat. So there's three ways to actually interact with your agent, because we've already set up our environment variable, we've already set up the API key, we've set up the agent, the root agent, and the functional tools. You have three ways. You can set up a dev UI by running ADK web, or you can use a terminal by using ADK run, or you can use the API server. So if you want to actually do post requests, get requests to an API server, you can do that. So for the sake of everyone's, just so that it's a little bit easier for everyone, we're going to use ADK web. Okay. So it says here that if you use ADK web, the URL will be provided with the port 8000. Now I do have something else running on my machine that's running on port 8000. So if you don't want to use the same port of 8000 by default, it will give you the little bit of problem. You can switch it up to a different port, okay, just in case. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do that ADK web, but I'm going to change the port to 8080. Okay, so ADK web -- port 8080. Okay, so you can follow along and change the port to 8080, or you can just type ADK web and then hit enter, and it'll give you the default port of 8000. Okay, so whichever way you want, you can follow along, or you can use the default port. It's up to you. So I'm going to do 8080, port 8080. So I'm going to wait for it to finish running, and it did, and it will just tell you ADK web server has started. For local testing, access the localhost port 8080. Okay, this doesn't mean that it's available on the web. It's only available locally on your machine, so no one has access to your agent yet. So if I go ahead to open up a new port, a new browser tab, port 8080, and you have your ADK agent running. So it's there. That's your agent, and you can see right there. There's weather agent. Okay, so you can start asking it questions like, "Hi," and then unindent. Oh, okay. I have some sort of problem here at line 14. Oh boy. Line 14. What is that? No, it's correct. Does not match indentation level. Where did it go wrong? Okay, so sometimes the ADK web is not very helpful for me, because the errors here would just show like something like this. Does not match any other unindentation level. So what I could do, oh, is this thing. I have a little space there. Okay. And now something is missing. Nope, that can't be right. there we go. Yeah, so I may have missed a space or a double quote in there. I'll review back the stream and see what happened. Put a comment in there. Anyway, so as you can see, the agent is now running. You can now have your Google Gemini running on your local machine. So hi there. How can I help you today? Then you can ask it little questions like introduce yourself, I guess. I'm the weather time agent, and I can answer questions about the time and weather in the city. Okay, good. So it's doing as is being instructed. Okay, so let's go ahead and ask you a question like, what is the weather for BSB? So it then calls the get weather function, and it returns back to Vanessa Morgan is sunny with a temperature of 25 degrees. That does not look like 25 degrees. It's gotta be 30. Anyway. Okay, so you can do that. You can ask it what is the weather for BSB. You can try and ask it a different question of a different city somewhere else. What is the weather in Kuala Lumpur? It calls the get weather function again, and it says weather information for Kuala Lumpur is not available because why does it do that? Because we told it to, right there. Okay. So all that is doing great. So it's already got the weather for you. You can also start asking it to get the current time. So get current time. What is the current time in BSB? So it calls the get current time function. The current time in BSB is this day and time. Is it accurate? It is. Oh, 11:44. Oh, wow. That's a bit. I didn't realize we're already 40 minutes in. Okay, let's speed things up. Okay, so with get current weather and get current time, that already comes up to it shows you all this stuff inside ADK web. If you look some more inside the ADK web, there is the different kinds of conversations. You can see all the metadata, the functions that it tries to call, the requests. So all that little information is already all in there, and then a little bit of response. Okay, moving on. Let's say you can't afford to have Google Gemini API Key. You don't want to use Google Gemini API Key. You want to use something that's more locally hosted system. I may be panicking, but that's normal. So the thing is, I'm going to use Docker Desktop. Okay, so with Docker Desktop, right, it allows you to actually run your Ollama locally on your machine. So Ollama, what is Ollama? For those who don't know, if you go to ollama.com, it basically gets your you get up and running with large language models. The documentation, I would think the documentation should be in this little burger menu at the very top right corner of the screen, or if I expand it. The documentation is not at the top. That's where I scan my eyes and look around. Apparently, it's not there. The documentation is all the way at the bottom, right there. So if I draw an arrow right there. There's your download over there, and your docs is over here. Like, why? What's with the? Why are they doing this with the little UI on this thing? Anyway, yeah, if you want to learn on how to actually use Ollama and all that stuff, you got to click on through the docs, and then it'll tell you what to do, how to actually run it. So in the documentation, don't be scared. It's only GitHub. It's fine. There's the little quick start examples in importing modules and all that stuff. Here's the Windows documentation and the Docker documentation. If you want, you can use the Windows documentation, which will then show you that all you gotta do is just download Ollama and then just go through the little commands that you can actually run directly onto your machine. I don't install Ollama. I keep it inside a container within Docker setup. So some basic requirements is that you got to at least have you be using Windows 10 and above. Anyone who's using Windows 7 or Vista, I'm going to start hunting you and start telling you to reformat over to Linux. So the next one is the GPU. Have some decent GPU cards readily available. You can use NVIDIA or the AMD Radeon drivers. If you're going to run this off on CPU, I've tried this myself. I have this posted on my blog on buymeacoffee.com/Koyum. If you go over there, you'll be able to find that I've tried running this directly on CPU, and it really burns up. Like it's hitting 70 degrees or higher So be a little bit decent, buy a little bit of a GPU card, put it onto your machine, and then you can actually run it properly. So if you're going to use with Docker, here's Docker documentation, and it's basically this straightforward. So this is what I meant of using CPU only, is just doing that. But I have an NVIDIA GPU, so I'm going to skip the apt or yum or dnf because I'm not running it running on Linux. I'm doing this inside Windows. So it's basically just this command. Okay, the docker run -d -gpus equals all -b Ollama blah blah blah. So basically just copy and paste this into your Docker desktop terminal. So where is my Docker desktop? It's right here. Okay, so I do have that running, but let me just show you one from scratch a little bit. This involves a little bit of time. So if you were to actually do this, maybe I should have done this earlier, just for everyone's sake. So if you actually run that, I have to clear out the API key. So if you copy this and paste, okay, good. If you copy this and paste, it will then show you that you can run -d -gpus equals all blah blah blah, and then run that. So since I already have Ollama already running there, I'm just gonna rename this as Ollama 2. It doesn't exist, okay? Ollama 2 doesn't exist. There's only Ollama. I'm just giving it a different name. Or yeah, I'll just name it as --name. So after --name, give it the name of Ollama 2 or something, or whatever you want. I name mine as Ollama 2, then Ollama /Ollama, and then hit enter. So when this does, it will then spin up that Ollama. So if you don't have the Ollama image, it will start downloading that Ollama image for you. It's all here in the images tab, and if it should be in this Ollama. Okay, I assume you have Docker Desktop already running and installed. Otherwise, you can just go ahead into the Ollama.com. Where is Ollama? Ollama.com. And if you click on the download for Windows, you can do that. Okay, you can download and start away, install, and then just use it. Okay, it's totally up to you, whichever way you like. You can download for Windows and then hit install directly, or you run through Docker and then keep everything containerized within Docker. So now that I have my Ollama running, let's say you have yours already running. We will move on to actually start calling which model we want to use. So there's a lot of models available on Ollama, and all of these are free for you to use. And you might be thinking, okay, which one should I use? There's so many. There's Qwen 3, there's DeepSeek, there's Devstral, Llama 4, and all that stuff. So there's so many open source models out there. You can use whichever you want. And even more so, every single one of these models have these different tags. There's the thinking model, 1.5b, 7b, 8b, 14b. These are like different billion parameters. The more billion parameters that you download and use, the more accurate, the more reasoning, the more performant it is. But that comes with a cost, because the higher the billion parameters, the more processing power your computer needs to run. So for the sake and for everyone's computer life to continue living, if it wants to live longer, you got to use a little bit. You use a smaller model. So what I'm thinking of using is using Qwen 2.5. Okay, in the Qwen 2.5, you use the Qwen 2.5. Use the 0.5b parameter model. Okay, so if I click on the Qwen 2.5, there's Ollama run Qwen 2.5. That's basically the command. And here are the different model with the different tags. So if you look at the Qwen 2.5 0.5b parameter model, the size of that model is only 398 megabytes. Okay, so I don't know if habis-habis kota kamu ini seorang-seorang. I don't know if you can actually support downloading another gigabyte. You can actually do this. You can just grab 398 megabytes worth of model, as opposed to getting the highest one that's about 47 gigabytes. Habis kota sekarang. So let's grab this one, Qwen 2.5 0.5b parameter model. It basically just means running this command, Ollama run Qwen 2.5, but we have to put in the :0.5b. So to do that, back in here, we will need to run docker exec it. And of course, if you already have models already downloaded and installed, without me using Qwen 2.5, or you may already have Ollama already downloaded. So if you can do docker exec it, and I'm not using Ollama, I'm using Ollama 2. The docker exec -it Ollama 2, and then the rest of it is just Ollama command, Ollama list. If I hit enter, it'll then tell me like, oh, I have these list of models already available that I've already downloaded before. If you have not pulled it or run it, you have to do pull Qwen 2.5 colon 0.5b, and that will then pull the Qwen 2.5b model. Okay. Hopefully you're able to come along with me so far. I've got like 7 more minutes left to go. So we're almost done. We just need to get this one done. So if you did this, if you already pulled it, and depending on your network speed, and if it's quick enough to actually download 500, let's say 500 megabytes worth of the models in a few minutes. Yeah. Gemini 3 is also really good. You can use many ways to actually benchmark all of these AI, all of these open source models. You can go to LLM Arena and then take a look at which one is the best performing. It depends on your taste of how much can you burn into your computer. Okay, so let's move on. So I already pulled Qwen 2.5. Now if I were to run it, so then I have the LLM model directly in here. I can start asking questions. Hi, and it'll ask you, hello, how can I assist you today? Now, if I were to do this without the ADK, and if I ask it to introduce itself, will it still identify itself as a weather agent or not? Hit enter, and it'll just say, okay, it's just a regular AI model Qwen created by Alibaba Cloud and blah blah blah. So it's not a weather agent. So it's not part of our ADK. It's not part of our AI agent yet. So we can do that. So exit. Yes. Oh, how do I exit? Bye. Okay, so that's how you exit out of Ollama. So now that the Ollama 2 is still currently running, if you want to double confirm whether it's running or not, you have to open up to the localhost port 11434. So if you click on that, you should be able to see this. Okay, Ollama is running. Okay, Ollama is running on localhost 11434. Okay, if you see that, that means it's running. Whether that means you're doing it on a Docker or whether you're downloading it on Windows, and if it's already running in the background and it's running on port 11434, then that means it's running. Good. So we have Ollama already running. Next, we will now start using the model Ollama. Where are you, model? Where is that model? I am looking for models. Yeah, here we go. So in the ADK tutorial, inside this documentation, if you want to learn how to actually play around with the Ollama model, you have to go into the documentation under agents, and then there's models. Okay, you got to click on that one. So click on that. Okay, click on that. Okay, just so you can see it. Okay, so moving on to models. Okay, so in here in the models, if you click on that models, you will be brought into this separate page. Using different models with ADK, you have all of these different models available on your right, on part of the table of contents. You can see one that says here, Ollama integration. So if you click on that, Ollama allows you to easily run open source local models locally. You can use like this one. It tells you you can try using Mistral Small 3.1 or any other model file, even Llama 3.2 as another example. So there's a lot of ways, many models that you want to use, but to actually start integrating this Ollama into your ADK is to do this. So there isn't a lot of changes between Google ADK, Google Gemini, or using Ollama. You just have to use the litellm wrapper. Okay. So to do that, right? Go to your Visual Studio Code. Where am I? There it is. Okay. So back into your agent. Okay. So I'm just gonna close this one so it doesn't complain any problems as I start writing code into here. So you need to import the LLM. Okay. So inside this root agent, right now the model just shows this. Okay, Gemini 2.0 Flash. Right now we're gonna switch it over to using Light LLM model, OpenAI Mistral small 3.1. So at the very top, you need to import that Light LLM. So to do that, it's from google.adk.agents.light. Sorry, hang on. I'm lost. There it is. Okay, so that's the thing that you need to copy. So if you don't know what to type or how to actually do this integration, that's the one. That's the one that you need to import. So google.adk.models.light_LLM import light LLM. So when I did this before, right, when I started playing around with this one, I had a little problem where I couldn't get this one to run. It's because of the little typo I wrote it right up here, light LLM. The light, the first L is capital, the second L is capital. The next L after that, the third L, it has to be in lowercase. Okay, make sure that's in the lowercase. I had that problem where I put both of these as LM. Okay, like capital LM. And then this caused a problem. Like, why isn't my agent be able to run? Like, I was able to get it to run with Gemini, but I wasn't able to get it with Light LLM. Apparently, I misspelled that. It's not supposed to be that. It's supposed to be small LM. Okay, make sure you copy and paste correctly. Okay, moving on. So the Light LLM, you can use. You can also follow this way in a little bit, kinda ish. So you can. So we need to set up a API base URL. URL is equals to, where did we put our Ollama? It's on our local host. So HTTP localhost. I didn't put it at 8,000. I'm putting it at 8080. So that's totally up to you, wherever your endpoint is. And then the next one is the model. Okay, so the model name. Okay, so the model name that we're currently using, or the one I'm using, I don't know about you. If you're using a different model in of itself, you can use it. You can use that model. I'm using Quen. So to do that would be Ollama. Okay, so the thing about how to actually refer to which model is shown in where are you? Oh, it's shown here. Okay, shown here. So it says here Ollama chat. Okay, so that's the important key thing here. Even though we called ours like Ollama 2 or Ollama, over here according to this one, the light LLM wrapper, you gotta make sure that you're referring to the Ollama chat. So you gotta use Ollama underscore chat and then the name of the model along with the parameter. Okay, so I'm using Quen 2.5 colon 0.5b. Okay, so make sure you follow exactly which billing parameter that you want to use and which model that you want to use. And if you're using Ollama, make sure you're using Ollama underscore chat. Once you have this, the API base URL and the model name, you can then start putting all of this into your root agent. So the root agent, you have to maintain the name root agent. You cannot change this name. The root agent must maintain as a root agent. You cannot use any other. So in here, I'm going to comment that out. So to comment is just using this little hashtag #. Put a hashtag there. So if you want to switch between Gemini or the Light LLM Ollama, you can freely do so if you want. And then here, I'm going to do model. It basically does it for me. Thank you, Copilot. Appreciate that. How much is it? Oh, we're running over on the time. So if you if you've already done this, you've already put in your model, your Light LLM, your API based URL model name, and you save it. You make sure you save it. You spam the Control S several times, and then if you run ADK web that with support or without support, it's totally up to you again. And you start playing around with it, ADK web. Now if I go into my localhost port 8080. Zoom out. Okay. Hi again. Not found during what? No. Agent at. run weather engine. Oh, okay. So what happened? Okay. Because any mistake is worth learning. Okay. So apparently, no module named light LLM. Apparently, I skipped a step. No, no. So it's not the API based URL. Right now, the problem is this one. The module named light LLM is missing. So in here, I skipped one step. Is basically that you need to pip install light LLM, right? So I forgot to do that one. So you gotta pip install light LLM, pip install light LLM. Okay, so the way how did I diagnose and find out what that was? I ran ADK run. So sometimes when you run ADK web, it doesn't give you the errors like it's not giving you the errors as obvious as it should. So if you run ADK run, it will then tell you that you missed this part out, or this one is missing, or that one is missing. So if I run ADK run again, ADK run, and then the name of the agent that you want, let's say weather agent, then it will say then it will just tell you if it will give you another problem. So now it's telling me a different problem. Required model is missing. Right, so it's not model name. Copilot, you're screwing things up for me. Now it works. So with ADK run, it's getting a little bit more clearer now. It tells you where the problems is. So right now it's just saying missing one required position argument model because in here it was model underscore name because Copilot did it for me. So that one was wrong. So now it works. So hi, and then goes over to Quinn, and the Quinn just says, "Sure, how can I help you today? Introduce yourself. Introduce yourself." And it does that. Okay, so it works. So you can also do this. You can do this inside your ADK run, or you can also do it in ADK web, whichever way you like. Let me just do one last thing with ADK web, and then we can actually end it. ADK web dash port. Okay, and go over to my browser, and nope, to my browser, refresh. Okay, hi. It should work. Please work. Okay, it works. Okay, so what is the current weather in BSB? And it tells me that. All right, so it still works without the Google Gemini API key. You can start spamming this over into your Ollama, and your credit card doesn't get overloaded. All right. Thank you all for attending my workshop. Thanks, Kayum. So we're gonna move on to our next session because yeah, we're a bit restricted with time. Yeah, thank sorry about that. Thank you. If you guys have any questions, so drop a message on his Google Classroom. Yeah. Me and glad to be part of Build with AI